Today, I'm going to be breaking down the best settings in Fortnite for newer players or even older players if you're still looking for some nicer settings. But let's jump right into it. Okay, so you obviously want to go into your settings to start this off, and we're going to start it off in the video section. Now, your display doesn't really matter. You can either play windowed full screen or full screen. Now, if your monitor's resolution is higher than the resolution you want to play at, don't make it windowed full screen. Some people may not understand that, but basically every single monitor has a resolution of its own. Mine is 1440p, but yours could be 1080p. Just check your monitor and see which one it is. If yours is 1080p, feel totally free to play in windowed full screen, or you can just play in full screen and set it to 1080p. Either way, this setting doesn't really matter that much. That being said, you should probably be playing on 1080p just because it will give you the best frames and it will also compromise a good graphics quality. So basically what this means is if you try and play on 1440p, while you will get really good graphics, your FPS will be looking really slow. But if you're playing on 1080p, you're getting super good FPS and also your graphics are pretty good. So 1080p is usually a good medium between high graphics and high FPS. So you'll always want to be focusing on trying to play on 1080p and getting that nice crispy FPS and graphics. The next setting is about your FPS. Now for this, you're going to want to check your monitor's refresh rate. Mine is 144 Hz, so that means it can show up to 144 frames per second. Basically, to break it down one level further, it refreshes 144 times every single second, so that means it can display up to 144 frames a second. But that being said, you can still push your frames past that 144 mark on your game. It just won't be a noticeable increase in quality. If your monitor is 60 Hz, then you can limit your FPS to probably around 120. That will make it look pretty good. If your monitor is 144 Hz like me, I typically limit it at 160 FPS just so I can get better performance and less frame drops. The next category, brightness, I keep it at 75% just so that nothing is too bright, nothing is too dark. That way it's a nice middle ground. 100% I personally find a little bit too bright, but this is honestly all up to you. This setting isn't really that important. User interface contrast, just leave that at 1%. Don't even touch that setting. Now, colorblind mode is a complete preference. I switched to Protanope a while ago, even though I'm not colorblind. I personally just like the look of the coloring better, but some people do honestly prefer the normal colors, and these ones look sick as well. So honestly, whatever you find as your favorite setting, honestly, just experiment with this. Find what colorblind strength you like, which colorblind mode you like, and if you want to leave it at no colorblind mode, that's totally fine too. This is honestly all a preference category. Next, we're going on to the graphics quality. Now, this is an important category that you all need to listen to here. The graphics quality setting is very important because even if you have a really good PC, you're not going to want to shove all of these to the epic settings. While I do have a GTX 1070, which is a really good graphics card, I still don't pump these up to epic settings just so I can maximize my frames and get the best quality in game. So you're definitely not going to want to press auto set quality, and for the quality presets, just set it to custom so that you can do everything on your own. Preferably your 3D resolution should be at 100%, but if your computer is having a little bit of issues with frames, turn that one down a little bit just so you can get some more frames, because in the end, FPS is really important. Because honestly, Dr. Lupo did a study back on the first map, and if you had more FPS and lower ping, you would actually shoot more SMG rounds per second. So FPS is really important because it just makes the game look a lot more smooth and more clean. While having better graphics, it may look cooler, but you're going to miss some things that you wouldn't see if you had higher FPS. So for every single other setting in the graphics quality, I have it to set to the lowest option. Now for these, you can change some of these to epic, but I would recommend keeping most of these at the lowest setting just so that you can get really good FPS. That being said, if you have an RTX 3080, by all means pump these up to all epic settings. If you don't really care about your frames that much and you just want a really crisp looking game, definitely turn these all to epic. I would recommend keeping shadows off, as that majorly tanks your frames, but for most of these you can keep these on the lowest setting. If you have a really good graphics card, you can pump these up to the highest settings, but I personally keep them all at the lowest. Now for your advanced graphics, you're definitely going to want to keep VSync off, as this is basically vertical sync for your monitor. It would take a while to break down fully, but what it means is that it can cause a bunch of screen tears, and that basically means you're going to have little lines on your screen. So you definitely don't want to have this one on, because while it can sometimes improve frames, the majority of the time it's going to screw up your game in some way. Motion blur, definitely turn this one off. Unless you're making a creative montage, you're going to want this one off, as it greatly lowers your frames. Show FPS on or off, this one doesn't improve your graphics at all. It just basically lets you see how well your computer is performing and what your normal FPS is at. DirectX, I honestly haven't tried DirectX version 12, but since it still is in beta, I would honestly just stay DirectX 11 for now. You can push it to 12 if you would really like, but I keep it at 11 just because it is a little bit safer, just because 12 is in beta, so you may see some frame issues if you do try and push it to that. Now, allow multi-threaded rendering. Basically, what this means is that if you have multiple cores on your processor, it will split up the rendering process across those separate cores. So I have an i7-8700K, which has 6 cores, which basically means that it is totally fine to have this setting on, as it will allow the rendering to be able to be split up across those 6 cores. Now, you don't need to know your exact CPU like I do. If you just have a general idea of when your computer was made, basically, if your computer was made 2016 or later, you should be totally fine to have this setting on, as most of the CPUs after that point are really good, and if your computer is probably above $400 or $500, you're really good to have this setting on. Use GPU crash debugging is really just for Epic's info. Turn this one off as it literally does nothing to help your performance. It doesn't do anything to increase your performance. It's literally just a crash logging system. Now, these final 3 categories, if you don't have an Nvidia graphics card, you can't use them at all. So just turn these off if you don't have an Nvidia graphics card. But if you do, feel free to turn them on, as they just kind of let you know when you are lagging. They will give you latency markers like it says right there. Reflex on low latencies. To be totally honest, I haven't tested this setting at all, but from what I've seen, it reduces your overall system latency when your GPU is really being heavily used. So you can turn this one on, but I honestly don't know the impacts of your FPS that much. This is the only category that I don't know that much about, so to be totally honest, you may just want to keep this one off unless you have an Nvidia graphics card. If you have like a 3080, like I said, or even a 2080, 2070, you are totally fine to have this one on. When you have a 2070 or 2080, you're really free to do whatever you want. So those are all of the graphics settings in Fortnite Chapter 2 Season 4. If you guys found this helpful or enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like on it and subscribing to the channel, as that would help me out a ton. By the way, I'm probably going to be doing a few more of these tutorial types of videos, just trying to show newer players what settings they should be using. So just to note that that will be upcoming in the future. Remember, all of my channel members, my golden gummies, are linked in the description down below, so make sure to go check out their channels. Along with that, make sure to go check out my music producer. It's me, Koda. He's going to be making a ton of more music, and his stuff is really awesome. So I highly suggest you go check out his channel. Thank you guys for watching the video. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Have an amazing day, and I will see you in the next one.